I think it's important to remember when we're talking about harvesting, completing the harvest, we're not speaking exclusively about harvesting plants that have been growing in our gardens. There's a lot of other ways to harvest. Harvesting is just when something, taking advantage of something that has been completed, that was put aside in whatever place for future intention. When you are planting a garden, you plant the seeds or you plant seedlings or however you do it, and you tend that garden, and when the plants are grown and come to completion, then you harvest them, and you either eat them fresh, enjoy them fresh, whatever's left over. You might preserve, like we talked about before, preserving through drying or canning or freezing or whatever method, pickling, fermenting. There's a lot of different ways. Or you can, and that would be for future use. Okay. Now, there's another way that I harvest, and I harvest at this time of the year. It's very appropriate because one of the things that I always harvest at this time of the year is my Thanksgiving turkey carcass. Now, that's nothing new. A lot of people use the turkey carcass to make soup, whatever, okay? But remember me, I'm kind of lazy. I talked to you before about how lazy I was. So on Thanksgiving, when I'm really busy and have a house full of people, and I know I'm going to be dealing with leftovers for days and days afterwards, I don't want to deal with a turkey carcass. I don't want to deal with that right then. And a lot of times in the past, when I didn't have room in my refrigerator, space was limited, I had to come up with a system where I rotated. I used to have a freezer, and I had a separate freezer, and I had a lot, but now I have to rotate, okay? I'm rotating the space that I have, which is just about like the space that you have. I have one more little extra refrigerator with this tiny little freezer on the top. But, so when I'm removing things, I had to remove things before Thanksgiving, all of the things that I had made ahead, I had done ahead, and I'll talk to you about what some of those things were. And then I had to make room for that carcass to go in, right? The carcass went in, I just put it in a trash bag, a white trash bag. My husband just plopped the carcass with the little bits of meat still on it, right into the bag, tied it up in a knot, threw it in the freezer. And it has been sitting there up until today. Today we took it out of the freezer, and if you can see, it's plopped in that pot back here, this big pot behind my head, and it's ready to work magic for me. Now, what magic is going to work for me? Well, it works a lot of magic for me. Yes, I'm going to make soup. I'm going to make soup not really for now. I make the broth, turkey noodle soup. I make the broth, and then I get the containers, the quart containers, which I have a lot of them in my freezer, in my little freezer, full of 2 quarts, just enough for the 2 of us. A quart. 1 quart is enough for the 2 of us. It's 4 cups, so it's perfect size for us. And I freeze the broth, the turkey broth. So when this is finished, I will freeze some of that and season it up. I will take this broth, and after I cook this, it's going to get strained. It's going to get seasoned, and then I will take some of that, add to it a little bit of like fresh parsley. I will make sure I season it really good with salt and pepper, and then I will freeze that, ready to take. All I would have to add then is noodles when I'm ready to make the soup. So that will be in there. I don't put the noodles in first, because if you put noodles in broth too soon, after they sit there for a while, they're going to end up, you take a little thin spaghetti, it's going to end up this fat. You get these big giant noodles. So that's something that you should do when you're heating it up. Like if you ever get the Lipton noodle soup in the box, the tiny little noodles, you see how they plump up? Well, that's the same kind of thing. And when I cook that up, I'm going to be able to throw in any kind of noodle I want. Big noodles, small noodles. I use little bits of broken spaghetti, or I use, if you want to make it like the Lipton soup, you use the thin spaghetti, broken pieces of that. But any kind of noodle is really good. Or you can cook it with dumplings and have it with dumplings, or there's a lot of ways you can have it as a soup. It's really delicious. Or you can use it as a base for other soups. But there's some magic that has to happen with this turkey carcass first. And this is what I want to show you. Something else that I do. And here is my bag of gold. To anybody else, I don't know if you can see it, but to anybody else, this is a bag of trash. It's something that you would be putting, if you were Rachel Ray, you would be putting in your garbage bowl. It is the bottoms of celery stalks. It is the ends of onions and sometimes the peel. It is the stems of zucchini. It is the stem ends of tomato. It is the top inedible parts of leeks. That's one of my favorite things. There's not a whole lot of things, variety of things in here, but there's always those things. And I filled up these what are these, gallon bags? And I freeze, when they get full, I put these in my freezer. And I've taught this trick to some other friends, and they thought it was crazy at first, and now they do it too. But we do this, and if I have, for my turkey carcass, I have this bag of leavings, my little bits and ends. I put in a few bay leaves, dried bay leaves, like probably 1 or 2, depending on size, or maybe 3 if they're little. I don't know, are these little or big? They're kind of big, so I'll probably put 2. And a handful of peppercorns. And I want to tell you something. With my turkey carcass, and then I fill it with water, and I cook it. And I just let it cook, and I'll show you. I'm going to put it in the pan, and I'll let it show you. But I want to say first, I use the same trick with this bag. I use 1 bag, by the way, per carcass. That's my proportion. That's my recipe. I gave you my recipe. For chicken broth, I do this all the time. I will use a chicken carcass, or I will use chicken backs. You know, sometimes we have, if I'm cooking a chicken where I'm going to take the meat off of it and use the meat in a recipe, then that's a clean carcass, and I use that. If I roast a chicken and we eat it, and then what we carve off the carcass, I will use that. I don't use bones that, we've chewed off of. Like, I wouldn't take a chicken drumstick that I've eaten off of and throw that in the bag. No, these are only bones that have been, surgically removed from the chicken before you eat it, before serving. Okay, so if I spatchcock a chicken, flatten it down for grilling or whatever, cutting out the backbone, I'll throw those in a bag. The other trick is my husband this is his favorite thing to do. I don't know. It's so handy to have around. But he has learned how to debone chicken thighs. Oh, because they're so cheap. Chicken thighs are really cheap. And I happen to have this aversion to eating chicken meat off of a bone, especially chicken off of a bone. I don't like it. So I was always trying to buy boneless thighs. And it's expensive, and he says it's so easy to do himself. So he does them. And to be honest, he does a better job than when you buy them. And sometimes when you buy them, they have these little bits, I don't know what they are, that I don't like to eat, like little bits. I don't know. But he does a really good job. And then those bones, he debones them before he cooks them, and then those bones he puts in a bag. So when I get enough chicken bones to make a pot of stock, I'll get a bag of my trash and I'll put it in there. Okay. Finally, the last thing I do is, I've mentioned in the past that I have 3 children and 2 of those are vegetarians. So I always need a good bunch of veggie stock. And to get veggie stock, I take 3 bags in this big pot behind me, 3 bags of this covered with water, and I will add, yes, some peppercorns, yes, a couple bay leaves, but I will also add to that a small bag of dried mushrooms. You get them in the produce, I don't know, they're only a couple ounces, they're very small. And it doesn't matter what kind of mushrooms it is. I'm not sure. There's sometimes a variety. But it's just in one little package. How many ounces? It's maybe a 3-ounce package or 2-ounce package or whatever. It's just a little bit. And I add that to 3 of these. Plus some of this. Plus some of this. And that makes the most terrific veggie stock. And I then cook it down. Then I strain it all out. And I freeze all of these stocks in 2-cup measurements in a quart zippy bag. In a quart size freezer bag. Make sure it's a freezer bag because it's heavy and it won't leak on you. And I have those in my freezer. And it's like gold because the carcasses are free. This is free. You know, it's like, and you know, to buy those quart boxes of stock, well, the canned things of broth are way too salty. You buy the boxes, and they're really expensive. And you know, like I learned this trick because I cook a lot of feasts. I might cook a feast for 100 people in the SCA, and you go through a lot of broth, and boy, that's a big part of your budget if you're trying to use box stock. So I learned this trick, and it really works well, and I know a lot of other people that do it too. So I'm using it today. I'm harvesting my chicken. You see, I'm harvesting my turkey carcass, and I'm harvesting, yes, all these bits that I have saved in my freezer. So I'm harvesting my freezer. I'm getting this bag out of the way, making room, because what's going to go in my freezer now is this weekend are some cookies for my family, some Christmas cookies. So I gotta freeze them. If I don't freeze them, my husband will eat them. He'll eat every one. He's even known to eat frozen cookies, but I've really given him the fear of God in him if he tries, because that's just cheating to go in there. I've gotten things out of the freezer, you know, I'm thinking, oh, I have these wonderful cookies for Christmas. Well, I get an empty tin. So anyway, I thought I would share this. I'm going to put these things in my thing, and I'll show you how horrible it looks on the stove. And then I'm going to show you some more things I am harvesting. Okay, here you can see in my pan, I hope you can see it, I have my turkey carcass. There's still a little bit of meat on the bone, not too much, out of the bag. And I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to take my bag of magic, my garbage, and it doesn't really smell that good, so just dump it in there. Dump it all in there. Remembering, this is going to all be strained out. I like to add some of these onion peels, you know, the skins from the onions. They don't really add any flavor, but they add a nice color. They give it a really pretty color. Okay, so I put those in there. And then I'm going to add a couple of bay leaves. Remember, I said these are kind of big, so I'm only going to put 2. And, oh, there's a piece of gold. And then I'm going to put just a handful, a little small handful of peppercorns, like that. So maybe like a half a tablespoon. Notice I didn't say salt. I'm not going to add any salt at this point because you do not want to over salt them. I don't ever really salt my stocks. I will salt the bit that I take out to use for my soup base. But if I'm just going to keep it in the freezer as turkey stock, I'm not going to salt it, because you want to be able to season things with whatever recipe you're using it for. You don't want to ever end up with too much salt, because you can't take it out. But pepper, no problem. And then I'm going to just cover it with water, plain old water. I probably need some more. Let me come back. Okay, I just want to get it covered. This is going to do it. It's going to float. It's kind of floating. But you get the point. See, it's all covered. That's good. And I'm just going to turn this on. I'm going to start it on high just to get it to come on. It's going to take a while to bring it up to temperature. Put a lid on it. Keep an eye on it, because, you know, anything like this, when you're going to boil it, it's going to try to boil over it eventually. This has a vent in the lid, so it shouldn't be too bad. Anyway, I'm going to get that. You'll know when it's done because you'll be able to smell it, and you'll see the color. And then I'm going to let it cool with the bits still in it. Let it cool down. When it's completely cool, then we're going to strain those bits out of there. Discard them. We won't use them any further. And then this is going to be, some of it's going to be saved for just stock. Some of it's going to be saved for soup base. So, anyway, when I don't know if I mentioned, but if I'm going to make the soup base, I'm going to add some fresh parsley to that, and I am going to season that with some salt and pepper, and that's just about it. And you know, this combination of the turkey for some reason, and this bag of bits, tastes just like Lipton soup to me. The broth has the same flavor as the Lipton soup, which is supposed to be chicken, and this is turkey. But anyway, I think it's a combination with all the vegetables that it is. I think that stock is a really rich stock that they use. So anyway, that is another way of harvesting. Getting ready for Yule, completing the harvest of Samhain.